Comics Are Dope is brought to you by the greatest shop in the world, my LCS, Fight or Flight Comics. And no, I'm not biased at all. They have a great selection of everything from new weekly comics to back issues, rare variants and statues and collectibles. They've got all sorts of stuff. And if you really want to follow what's going on, you got to follow them on Instagram. That way you can see when they get new collections in, when their latest signing or in-store events are, and what's in stock. So check out Fight or Flight Comics in Raleigh, North Carolina in the Triangle Town Center Mall and tell them BJ Kicks sent you. Now, let's start the show. Hey, yo, welcome to episode 57 of Comics Are Dope, the podcast. In case this is your first time watching this show, I'm your host, BJ Kicks, and this is a pretty special one. This is the final episode of 2024. It's the first that I am filming in the brand new digs. We bought a new home, our first home, and this is the studio for the foreseeable future. Like, I'm talking at least 5 years, probably more like 15. I don't know. We'll see. Right now, it's just the newness of things talking. But this episode is going to be a solo episode. There's no interview tonight. And it's just going to be a sort of year in review. 2024 was an awesome year for me. In a lot of different ways. We're going to start off. I got my notes off to the side. So if you see me looking, that's what I'm looking at. We're going to start things off, just personally, a lot of milestones this year. We're having a baby. That'll be at the top of next year. I lost like 15 pounds. I probably picked a couple of pounds up in the last month or so trying to get into this house. We bought a house. Like, those are huge things on a personal level. And then on a professional level, like for the channel, it's been a lot. There's been a lot of things that we have done. The year kind of started off with Dynamite Entertainment reaching out to us and, asking, hey, do you want to do some interviews? And I'm like, sure, I got you. And so because of Dynamite wanting to do these interviews, I started the podcast back up in earnest. Because if I'm honest with you guys, when our late co-host, Skipintosh, passed away back in June of 2023, I just was not feeling it. Like, I didn't feel like doing the podcast. The podcast was very much his thing. And, but Dynamite reaching out kind of gave me the confidence to try to do something different with, the platform that we had been building. So Dynamite reaches out, and from the second week of January all the way up until now, with very few interruptions, we've had an interview every single week. And that's insane. Some of the names that stand out to me, I mean, everybody is important. Everybody is cool. But if you had told me this time last year that I would end this year having had in-depth conversations with Dennis Cowan, Christopher Priest, Jeff Johns, David Pepose, the list goes on and on. But some of those people, I'd be like, no, there's no way that would happen. And it absolutely happened. But it only happened because Dynamite reached out and took that first step. And they sort of started a domino effect. There was like several people where it was like, hey, I saw you interviewed my friend. Like, I'd love to talk to you about this thing I've got coming up. And then, other publishers took notice as well. So, Dynamite took that big chance. Later on in the year, we started a official working relationship with Marvel where I review, several of their titles monthly. And that was insane. I did a one-off project for DC Comics this year, DC this year. And that was really cool. But the fact that I've been able to work with some of these publishers, like, we're going to get to the special thanks here at the end, but just know there's a lot that I was very surprised that I was able to do. And, it's been a really cool year for me, but I wanted to get into the year in comics because it's been a lot. There have been a lot of comics, this year. I would say 2024 has kind of been marked by All of these universes starting up. We had the Absolute Universe over at DC. Marvel relaunched their Ultimate Universe in January. Ghost Machine launched early this year. That was in January as well. Yeah, Ghost Machine. Oh yeah, the Energon universe that also launched. Well, I think that was late last year, but the point is we've had all of these sort of pockets that you could visit in comics, and then in the middle of all that, we had what was probably my favorite launch this year, and that is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles relaunched with a new #1 this year. I think as of recording, we're at issue 5 issues that are out. And when issue 6 comes out, because I've got an advanced preview on that, that's going to be great. Like, they're doing these new library editions starting for this new renumbered series. You're going to want to pick those up. I really do think the Ninja Turtles is probably the best launch of the year. And Jason Aaron is just getting started. Gosh, who was it that they announced? Juan Ferreira on the interior art starting with issue 6. Bro, it adds a whole different dimension to that book. But anyway, this whole hour, well, I'm not going to be talking to you for an hour, but this whole video is not going to be about the Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles was one of my favorite things. I did also very much enjoy the Ultimate Universe. Ultimates is probably my favorite. Ultimates by Dennis Camp and Juan Frigeri. It's probably my favorite of the Ultimate titles, followed closely by Ultimate Spider-Man. And Brian Edward Hill's Ultimate Black Panther has been really, really solid for me. Like, and I can't tell if it's just a really good book, or if like I'm just a T'Challa fan and this feels like the T'Challa we deserve. Like, T'Challa in the mainline universe isn't really doing much. Like, he's on the Avengers, but he's out there being petty and like, you know, avoiding emotional confrontation with his ex. Like, is this your king? So we got that going on. But Ultimate Black Panther just feels like regal T'Challa, taking chances, making decisions, doing all the things a king should do, being a true monarch. And so I love it. I've been loving it. And as we get into year 2 of the Ultimate Universe, I'm very, very excited to see what's popping there. Now, outside of the Ultimate Universe, at Marvel, I think my favorite title this year was Miles Morales Spider-Man. And Miles Morales Spider-Man is written by Cody Ziegler, art by Federico Vincentini, mostly. There's some breaks here and there, but definitely mostly done by Vincentini. And bro, when that book is firing on all cylinders, it is the best book out. Like, for me, I really latched onto this recurring theme of Miles learning from, you know, all of these different heroes, but specifically he's learning from like all of the Black heroes in the Marvel Universe. Misty Knight, Monica Rambeau's made an appearance. Luke Cage, Blade has even made an appearance. The only knock I have on this series is that it gets interrupted really often, like for, you know, just character crossovers, like with other Spider Office crossovers, but then also like with Marvel events. Miles was a huge part of the Blood Hunt event this year. And, you know, I was not on board for Blood Hunt at all. I was not reading Jed McKay's Avengers. I had jumped out at like issue 8 or 9. And so when Blood Hunt started earlier this year, I was like, but between the inclusion of Miles Morales and Bloodline, and honestly, the way they tied into a lot of other areas of the Marvel Universe, Blood Hunt ended up being really, really good. I specifically loved the Black Panther tie-in to Blood Hunt. And it was just like this perfect Black Panther comic, just kind of out of the middle of nowhere, by Cheryl Lynn Eaton. And I believe Matt Chater did the art. Matt Chater and, or was it Chris Allen? Yeah, Chris Allen and Fareed Karami. Really dope on the art. Yo, I apologize if you hear this air conditioning. Like, it sounds like a jet taking off in this place right now. That's crazy. But anyway, really loved that Black Panther tie-in series. And because of how much I love the Black Panther tie-in, I kind of kept up with Blood Hunt. And really the purpose of Blood Hunt was just kind of to set up the next event, which is One Nation Under Doom. But the way they did it was really cool. And so now I'm kind of on the hook waiting for the One Nation Under Doom. Like, they hooked me. And I think in that regard, Blood Hunt's probably the best event I've read in a while. There's not been a ton of events that made me want to keep reading in their respective universes. Like, even Absolute Power didn't feel like a must read to get into the All In special and the Absolute Universe stuff that followed it. But Blood Hunt made you feel like, oh, I gotta see what happens next. So shout out to Marvel for Blood Hunt. So that was some of my favorite things I read this year. I had a lot of one-off favorites. I just did a best of 2024 video with Near Mint Condition, and for my contribution to that video, I had to shout out Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze from Titan Comics, because I really love that. Over at Mad Cave, there's a miniseries by Gary Maloney and Daniel Romero. Kept wanting to call him Daryl. But it's called When the Blood Has Dried, and I really loved that. It's like a fantasy Western type book. Most of these books you've heard me talk about either on the Pull List, my weekly video, or in interviews on this show specifically. So check those out if you haven't already. Typically I would cheat and look around my room at all the books that I've read recently. I don't have any cheat sheets. All my books are packed up in a different room. These shelves are empty. But, Blood Hunt was dope. The Black Panther Blood Hunt book was really good. Like I said, everything Ultimate I've been loving, although I'm very much behind on Ultimate X-Men. Speaking of X-Men, I very much fell off of X titles this year. Once the Krakoa era actually officially came to an end with the fall of the House of X and they started relaunching stuff, I fell off very quickly. I was not a big fan of Jed McKay's X-Men. Something about the art just isn't working for me, but I'm loving Gail Simone on the Uncanny X-Men. Gail Simone and David Marquez. Like, if you're going to read one X-Men book, that feels like the far and away favorite for me. But some of these other books, I gotta wait for the trade paperbacks to come. NYX, Exceptional X-Men, X Factor by Mark Russell, all of which I've heard good things about, but it was just kind of too much too soon with all these books. And so I decided I wasn't going to invest that much time, money, or effort into the X-Men line. I'll wait for trades on those. But yeah, what else were some of my favorite comics? Wonder Woman by Tom King. It got interrupted by Absolute Power, and that was kind of frustrating. But before Absolute Power and now since Absolute Power, that might be the best book at DC. And that's saying a lot, because there are a lot of great books at DC right now. Speaking of, DC has gone all in. They've, got new storylines, new jumping in points for pretty much all of their main titles. And those launched, very closely followed by, the Absolute Universe titles. So Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, Absolute Wonder Woman. Later on next year, we're getting an Absolute Flash and an Absolute Green Lantern. Absolute Green Lantern, I'm very much looking forward to. It's written by Al Ewing. There was a joke, I don't know who it was that said this on Twitter, but it was like Al Ewing is the one white writer where it's like, hey, he's going to be writing a black woman. And you're like, oh yeah, cool. It's going to be great. Sign me up. I don't know where that sentiment came from. Well, except the fact that he does write really dope black women. But the point is, I'm excited to see that book. It stars Sojourner Mullen, if you didn't guess. So that'll be cool. Al Ewing also wrote Immortal Hulk, which for my money is probably the best comic I've read, period. But, I'll talk about that in a different video I got coming in January. But yeah, Jackie McGee in, Immortal Hulk was dope. He did the, X-Men Red, and Storm in X-Men Red was really good, followed by the Resurrection of Magneto. Really, really good stuff. So his work on just those figures alone has me like, yo, I'm down for whatever he's about to do with Sojourner Mullen. Absolutely down for it. My only concern is Al Ewing can be a bit of a heady writer, and putting a heady writer in space just sounds like a recipe for Kix's eyes are going to glaze over at some point. But hey, we'll see. As long as there's good character work, I should be okay. But anyway, Wonder Woman was dope by Tom King. The Absolute Power event itself, written by Mark Waid with art by Dan Mora, was really good looking. And then those colors, the colors by Alejandro Sanchez, typically I'm seeing Dan Mora with colors by like Tamara Bonvillain. And, you know, her colors are great. They're like, you know, somewhat flat, really bright colors and like just a nice bright palette. But like, that's a stark contrast to what Alejandro Sanchez was doing in the Absolute Power event. And even before that, he did like he did the colors on Dark Crisis as well. Very dark, very moody, very muted in some ways. And it just felt very much like gritty and high stakes. And I loved seeing Dan Mora's line work with those colors. So that was one of my favorite things last year or this year, depending on when you read or listening to this. So I love that. And you have to forgive me. I've been moving for the last 2 weeks. I'm sitting in this chair, and the longer I sit, the more tired I become. I feel like my words are slurring. So I'm going to wrap this up soon, I promise. But, yeah, so I think those were pretty much my favorite comics. I did read Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees in a trade paperback earlier this year. Loved that. There are a lot of books I read that I loved. I'll have to, as I unpack them, I'll tell you more about them. So stay tuned in 2024. Things that I'm looking forward to in 2024, by the way. Yeah, the One Nation Under Doom event at Marvel. I'm very excited to at least read the main event. I don't know. Marvel likes to go crazy overboard with the tie-ins. I'll wait for trades on the tie-ins, but I'm definitely trying to stay tuned to that main event. This even got me back into Avengers. I've been reading Avengers since Blood Hunt and ended. And part of that's because Storm joined the team. Let's be honest. But it's also because, you know, Blood Hunt was really good. Speaking of Storm, by the way, new Storm series by Murewa Ayodele. Really, really good. I've only read the first 2 issues. I think issue 3 is already out, but I've been moving. So there's that. One Nation Under Doom, though. I'm looking forward to that. Next thing I'm looking forward to is the continuation of this DC All In initiative. DC has been all in my pockets this year. So I had to kind of put a hard line on which books I'm buying, which books I'm waiting for trade on, which books I'm going to do on like DC Infinite. I'm definitely going to up my subscription to the Ultra tier so that I'm only 1 month behind on a lot of these titles. That's probably the best way to do that. Like I said, I put this in my notes, but I already shouted it out. Absolute Green Lantern. I'm looking forward to that, by Al Ewing. And there's a new Aquaman title. I have never picked up an Aquaman title off the shelves. The Aquaman title that was going when I got into comics in 2019 was already like speeding toward cancellation at that time. So this new, Aquaman by Jeremy Adams, and let's look it up. Let's see who's, doing the art on Aquaman, which hits shops in January. By the way, I did, January 8th, but I did do a, interview with Jeremy Adams. We talked a little bit about Aquaman. So check that out. John Timms on art. John Timms is a dope artist. That'll be good. That'll be cool. So I'm excited about that. Like, anytime I get a new #1 for a character that I'm not crazy familiar with, it's always fun for me. And whether I stick with it or not is a different story. But Jeremy Adams, so far, everything he touches like has turned into pull list material for me. So I don't think this will be any different. So those are some of the books I'm looking forward to. I haven't looked crazy far into the solicits for 2025 just because, again, last 2.5 months, basically since right before New York Comic Con, my focus has been buying this house. And so I've had my head in the sand for quite some time, which is why I didn't do any year-end list or anything like that. Yeah, 2025 is just going to have to kind of hit me as it comes, as, I don't know. That's a terrible analogy. Again, I'm delirious. I'm sleepy. But Other things I'm looking forward to, not just titles, in 2025, I'm going to be upgrading, this computer and my streaming setup. Right now you're seeing like a sort of choppy image from my super old camera that I've rigged to my computer through like micro USB, which like barely exists anymore. But just to show how crazy things are and how archaic this setup is. So I'm going to upgrade the podcast mic. I'm going to upgrade the video, equipment. I'm going to upgrade the actual computer itself all over the course of the next year. And then of course I'll be building out this room. So right now I literally just put the shelves up. I just built this shelf today, just bought it at Target. And so I think I've decided on the layout of the room. Now I got to just add all the books to it, get my wall art up, but that'll be the major project. Obviously I'm having a baby next. Well, I'm not having the baby. My wife's having a baby in like a month or so. And so, once she's born, I'll have a little bit more time. Obviously I'm gonna be devoting most of that time to her, but, I'll also have some time to just kind of think through how I want this room laid out. Got some art pieces I need to hang, some of them that aren't even here yet. So that'll be fun. That'll be a fun project you can watch on the channel. And we got, a lot of new partners that we'll be working with in 2025. So speaking of that, I want to go ahead and give my special thanks, to everybody, in 2024 who made stuff possible. So that starts with you, the viewer, the audience, you guys. Without you watching this, there'd be no reason for me to make these videos. And so the fact that you tune in every week, somebody commented last week and was like, hey, December 18th, where's the pull list video? I watch these every week. I need to know like what I'm buying. And I was like, man, sorry, I had to take a week off because I'm moving. But the fact that you expect it like that, like it makes me feel good. Does my heart good. So shout out to you guys for watching. I appreciate every single one of you, whether you just kind of lurk in the background or you comment or, you've joined us in our private communities on Facebook or Discord. Like you make this channel go round. The world that is this channel. You're the axis that it spins on, or are you the sun that it revolves around? It's late at night, dog. So shout out to you guys, the audience. Then there's another special thanks to our channel sponsors. So first being my LCS Fight or Flight Comics in Raleigh, to Dan, to Casey, to Emily, Max, Jack, Sarah, all the staff at Fight or Flight. Shout out to you guys for keeping my pull list books, bearing with me while I was trying to buy a house and had to leave some of these books sitting on the shelf. Thanks for the support of the channel over this past year, being able to like really shore up this relationship, make it official and, do all the things has been awesome. So shout out to you guys at Fight or Flight. If you're looking for comics and you live in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, then check them out. They're in the Triangle Town Center Mall on the first floor. If you go in the food court entrance, make that left at the Cinnabon, you'll see them. They've got a giant Ben Grimm in the window. You can't miss them. So shout out to Fight or Flight. And our other longest standing channel partner, over 3 years now, we've been partnered with Organic Price Books, the best place to go online for collected editions. So knowing that home ownership was a goal for me, I had to scale down my collected editions buying by a lot in 2024. And JP was always like, hey, man, you need a book? Like, here, I got a package coming your way. And I was like, yo, I appreciate that. Cause the way this thing works, you shout out a book, somebody might buy it. Maybe you'll get a couple of coins for affiliate revenue. But it's like, if I'm not buying books, then that means I'm not shouting out books and, the whole thing falls apart. So shout out to JP for understanding what's going on and, still supporting the channel either way. Although I have a feeling we're going to see this activity, ramping up in 2025, but shout out to OPB. Then next up, I wanted to shout out all of our publisher partners. So I told you guys at the start of the episode, like Dynamite Entertainment really kind of went out on a limb and supported me as a creator, out of the blue. I hadn't really had any interactions with them. And I wasn't reading Dynamite titles outside of the Disney stuff. And so for them to have taken the chance on me, to show me the love that they've shown me over this past year. Can't say enough great things about Nick and Amy and Jeff and Vincent and everybody at Dynamite, that, values what we do as creators. It's not even just me. Like, I've seen them on all sorts of people's channels in the last few weeks. And, they really are like a pillar in this community. So shout out to, Team Dynamite. Shout out to Marvel Comics, David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for, since they've, kind of reached out to me and we started this, working relationship, I see why like Marvel's number one. Like, you can say what you want about Marvel, like kind of flooding the shelves, just putting out so much stuff. But what I've realized being on this side of things is that Marvel puts forth effort that they don't really have to put forth as the number one. Like, they're doing the stuff that I would assume a number two would need to do to try to catch up with a number one. But the fact that Marvel is like the number one publisher and leads the pack and is basically front running, and they still go the extra mile to reach out to like little tiny YouTubers like me, to get feedback from people like Omar on what books to publish, like all sorts of stuff that they do to engage with the comics community, really shows why they're the big dogs in the sea, the big dog in the sea, big shark in the ocean, whatever. Marvel has proven why they are Marvel. And hey, it's been really cool to work with them in the very little capacity that I have. It's been dope. So shout out to David and the fine folks in Marvel. Over at Ghost Machine and Image Comics, Kat has been awesome. So thank you, Kat, for again, setting up interviews, taking the time, appreciating what we do as YouTubers. Shout out to my friends at Titan Comics, Will. Shout out to Tucker at Fantagraphics. Like, to have publishing partners that'll say, hey, here is our latest book. We wanted to send it to you for your consideration. Like, to have partners that help content, in this way is super helpful. Because at the end of the day, I'm a regular person. This is not my full-time job. And, oftentimes if I don't buy a book, I don't get a book. So for, all our publishing partners to be like, hey, we'll send you a couple of books, the things we really want to showcase. Just give us your honest opinion. I really do value that. And so I try my best to hold up my end of that deal and show off the books that they give, so that you can maybe find your next favorite title. So shout out to all of our publishing partners, including Scholastic as well. We've got a video coming up. We got some Animorphs books I'm going to showcase because I didn't know Animorphs had graphic novels. How crazy is that? So really, really cool stuff. Beyond the publishers, we got a couple of brands that always show love. So shout out to my man Moose at Wham Stand. You will see Wham Stand products all throughout my videos, all throughout 2025. And then Comic Capsules. There's actually some behind me over there, but you'll see them when I do my 2025 room tour. Comic Capsules will be on full display. So shout out to the team at Comic Capsules for creating a dope product, for people that want to show off their books, but don't necessarily care about a grade or encapsulating books for eternity. So those are all the shout outs. I wanted to give shout out to you for making 2024 an epic, insanely great year. And, here's to more dopeness in 2025. Till then, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.
Comics are dope.